Normally, I tell everybody that we're going to stay away from the 3D sketch until we're further into our exercises, and this is going to be one of those. Here's why. Again, these are kind of intermediate level. You should be pretty comfortable with the track one, having gone through a lot of the beginning type widgets and assemblies and a little bit with the drawings. And as we build in complexity, at some point we're going to need the 3D sketch. So after telling you don't use it, here's some good reasons why. So I've been hitting the new tab. I just happened to be on the other files and closing the other part. So we'll go to new part, and when I pick the 3D sketch, it puts me into what looks like a sketch, except that I have the 3D sketch. So normally that would be a red flag. You probably don't want to be in the 3D sketch. So one of the rules, one of the things that we can do is to get this started. If I double click on the top plane, even though I'm creating a wireframe in 3D, I can still use some of those 2D items. And then this is where the perception, the types of things that'll mess you up in a 3D sketch kind of begin. So I've drawn the rectangle, I'm going to midpoint, I'm going to be able to use very similar items to what we've been generating. So 2-inch 400, 1-inch 120, and then I'll put in the center line. And one of the things with the 3D sketch is also going to be that, kind of like the contour and region, I'm drawing from the top view, but I'm also planning. Let's see, in certain versions the mirror doesn't work in 3D sketch, so we'll see if we can mirror those entities. Alright, so it jumped out. So probably line 7, line 6. Alright, so line 5, I need to remove it from that list and add it as the axis of symmetry. So we put that in. If it doesn't allow you to create the mirror, then we have to draw in that geometry. And then we said we're 1.4 on depth. Alright, so the 3D sketch will not generate geometry, will not create features on its own. We're going to use this as a skeleton, as an envelope, as some type of geometry creation. Alright, so now I clicked out of the plane, and I no longer see that that working 2D grid, and I have what I call kind of the floating origin. I know there's a better technical name for it, but right now this is telling me what plane I can sketch in. So when I create the lines, we can generate our verticals. And the test here is that if I was in a 2D sketch, when I rotated this, I would not have that sense of depth. This would go all trapezoidal, rhombic, something or other. And I'm going to go ahead with those 3 lines, do the select, control select. Also notice I'm getting a Y, a long Y relation. That is setting the direction for those elements. So when I set them to equal, then I can go back to the rectangle, and the rectangle is going the wrong way, so if I hit the tab button, it goes and shifts, and now it's in the YZ, and it shifts again. Now I'm in the ZX, and I can go to that point and have the rectangle. Alright, so the smart dimension for the height was the 1.190. And then let's go ahead and complete out for the height here. And so I'm still in that ZX. Notice that the little box is showing me the direction. While I'm still holding down the left mouse button, I can hit tab, and that puts me back in the XY. Alright, so if I want to include those in the geometry and set to equal, then that will give me references, and I should have probably put a dimension there. That will give me references to work from. And then here's the case that I'm kind of drawing in that XY, but I need one in the YZ. So as long as I'm connecting those points, it will let me. So from there to there, and from there to there, and then we can come back and connect. And then the only one that still has that little bit of shift is that one, and we'll set it along Y. Okay, so that moves together. It's not twisting, doing a bunch of strange things. So we'll add the dimension, 1 inch 120. Alright, so since that is still capable of moving independent, that tells me that I did not get a vertical Y there. So make a long Y. That's going to bring it into to depth. Oh, I did 1 inch 190. I need 1 inch 900. There we go. That looks a little better. Alright, so that gives me my outside shape. Now my choices are, do I go ahead and build in the rest of that geometry? Pretty much what do I need to create the shape? So there's a midpoint. I can find coincident, and again, even though I'm not really in the correct plane to be drawing, as long as I'm connecting points, finding coincidences. And then let's see, if I look at the reference triad, that line is going to need to be along Z. It's the highlighted in bold, so that gives me its reference. So if you're not super comfortable with the relations to begin with, the 3D sketch relations are going to make it quite a bit more difficult. Alright, so a lot of this is being able to see in that 3D, see those 3D elements and try not to make it any more complicated than it's worth. Alright, so from this point to that line, I should be able to get the 0.76. And then one of these needs to be the 0.44, so 440. Alright, so let's see what's going on. If I go to a control 1, notice I have my dimension and it's able to flop around there. And this really isn't going to have an along X, Y, or Z because the geometry isn't really supporting it. So this would be one that I would look to a center line, find that midpoint, and then let's see if we can get it to go along X. Alright, so that brings it in, provides its orientation. Alright, so wireframe is getting more complex as we go. Alright, so for our purposes, I think I'm just going to go ahead and connect. So if I hit tab and tab again and bring that back out, then I'll do the select, control select for the points, set symmetry, set the distance to the 1 inch 400 and 400 on the depth. Alright, and the same thing with the line. So then at this point, have kind of the same issue. We could go ahead and leave this as the contour and region and call it enough geometry. If I need it, I'm going to go ahead and pull those lines up. And notice what happened is it looks like it's going the right way, but I just realized that I left. And when I rotate these over, they're going at an angle. So we're going to control Z. And I'm going to make sure when I start the line command again, I just hit L on the keyboard to jump into it, and then I'm doing tab, that my orientation is correct. Give myself a little more room. And then now the yellow lines, the inference lines, are giving me directions that look a little bit better. Okay, so long and long, connect the dots. Make sure I'm picking through. Alright, so this one's gonna be in a long Z, and then these are gonna be in a long Y, and because that pulls it up, that gives me the geometry. Alright, so let's go with the center line, and then we'll switch back over. Oops, hit it too many times. Switch back over to the line. Alright, so that floating reference is the one that you're going to refer to. Alright, so mirror about. Alright, so that one's not real happy. So in that case, we're going to draw. If it doesn't give me a result pretty quick, it's having trouble calculating it. So point. Nope, grabbed the wrong one. And did not select like items. So make sure I'm getting my points, and then still not giving me the symmetry. Okay, so it's not happy with that one. Let's just check the front plane. And I can go symmetry. I'm not sure when they added that, 2018, 2019. But we can go symmetric. And so if it doesn't want to do it, we know we're 1 inch. I can put a 1/2 inch dimension, then a 1 inch, or 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch to bring that to size. Alright, and then if I really want to take this out, we'll just drop the front. And I don't know that I need all of those, so along Z. We have enough geometry to build to, and I can always come back and add the remaining, whatever, 3 or 4 lines to finish this out. Alright, so fairly complex, and at the end of it, I still don't have all my everything I need to create the features. So we're going to go into the top plane, and here, well, let's see if we can, so that one's going to go all the way across. I'm going to introduce the convert entities. So if I highlight those, I didn't get into the top plane sketch, and rotated normal to, and I'm holding down the middle mouse button and rotating. And then when I convert entities, it's going to bring those in. I can draw the 2 lines coincident to connect the dots. Highlight those, and it's kind of whatever order you see it in. Features, extrude. And now in this case, because the skeleton is driving all of those dimensions, I want to use an up to vertex. I don't want any independent dimensions if I can help it. So we can go ahead and hit OK. I'll open up the sketch on the top. So in effect, we're building that scaffolding, we're building that skeleton, and it's going to be an investment up front, but it's going to give us a little more control, or a single point of failure, which is an advantage in certain strategies. And then I have to be able to find it. So let's go ahead and cut extrude up to vertex. And then there's our pieces of geometry. Alright, back into, so if I was just do the, let's try the extrude boss base. I can select the lines, but I'm not really getting anything. Notice it kind of goes right to 100,000 selected contour. Yeah, that's not really complete. And it didn't jump into the thin feature, which is surprising, or at least it hasn't done it yet. So not a good result. Even if we pick the well, we're not getting the selection menu. Alright, so there's kind of a different expectation working with these. Alright, so as I mentioned, not 100% necessarily that we generated all of this geometry, it's just giving us a good view. And I could trim these lines off, but converted entities do not necessarily have set relations. So I can go to the endpoints and drag them back, make them coincident, and that'll give me a desired result. Still going up to vertex, make the cut, and then the one that I forgot was the hole. So this time I'm just going to go coincident to coincident, coincident to coincident. I'll switch back to isometric, extrude cut, and up to vertex. So at this point, all of the dimensions are in the 3D sketch. I would like to keep it that way. So that being the case, I'm going to go back in, edit the sketch, and then if I open I just need to double click on the front plane, and we'll go Control 1 so that we can see it. And then I'm going to place that circle with its 0.5. I'm going to have to be a little careful here in the selection because that's not going to be real happy. It's going to go to the angle. That's going to put us off quite a bit. So that being the case, if I need it, I'll put in the center line. We'll find our 2 points. That goes fully defined. Now I have something in that plane that's not going to twist away from me. And we'll pick up our 1.38. And then the other center line is already there available. I just have to find it. There we go. And that's going to be the 0.56, 560. Okay, so when I accept that, now that geometry gets added to the mix, and then same type of thing. And I can convert, features, extrude cut, through all, accept. Alright, so at the end of it, I want to kind of clean up the 3D sketch, hide it, and then that gives me my geometry. Alright, so more complicated, about the same amount of time for this particular model. Typically, I reserve 3D sketches for more complex geometry, lofts, sweeps that require it, weldments definitely, sometimes sheet metal, things that are conceptual. Sometimes with multi-body parts, the 3D sketch is very useful. Top-down assemblies that are tying everything back to that single point of failure, 3D sketches are there. So again, not my first choice, but I want it in my toolbox so that I can be able to use it when needed.